The next step for getting this new motor into the car involves taking some parts off the old motor, including the wiring harness, some hoses, bits and pieces, putting them on there, but also putting on all the bolt-ons, the trans, basically everything can go onto this motor and it can be put in as almost a complete unit. So you have all the bolt-ons, you have the wires on, you can just drop the motor in. Pretty much all you have to do from there is connect the motor mounts and plug in the ECUs in the main part of the chassis, and the motor is good to go. So we have a lot to assemble, a lot to do. Let's get started. A lot of this video will be time-lapse, but there's also some important commentary I wanted to add. One of the first things I did was gap the spark plugs, which is, if you've never done it before, it's literally just creating a gap at the end of the plug to the desired gap. My tuner told me 0.02, which typically higher boost, smaller the gap. Press on it to close it, pull on it to open it, and then check it with a feeler gauge, which is a special tool to measure the gap until you get it to where you want. From here, I oiled my air filter, tightened up some loose ends, and then started putting on the bolt-ons. This part regarding the fuel line is important to talk about because a restriction on all of the 10th gen Civics is fuel, at least in the high power numbers. Most people are going to be limited by fuel, and one of the solutions, at least one that helps you a little bit, is drilling out the hard line, because as you see from factory, the diameter is super small. So by drilling it out a little bit, you get just a little more flow and allows you to make a little more power. So I drilled that out, blew it out with an air gun, cleaned it out with some brake cleaner, made sure there's no metal shards that'll get into the injectors, and then installed it. Nice. This part is also important to talk about because a common issue on the Type Rs is grinding gears, and a lot of that has to do with the slave cylinder. And in order to fix that, you can remove the clutch delay valve, which is what you're going to see me do here. Take it apart, take this, the delay valve out, and then put it back together, and just like that, in a lot of cases, it fixes the grinding gear issue. So a torque wrench, when you get to a certain tightness, it doesn't click like that.
It also feels like if you get stuck on a log. You just pull the log.
Enough with the fishing analogies. Damn. Quick comment, because some of you will probably ask, yes, you can reuse the SI actuator. You have to change to the Type R arm, which I got from PRL. It's a little bit longer, but the actuator itself will work. This is officially my first video back from surgery.
The Matrix has attacked me.
But I'm feeling a lot better and I'm able to walk around pretty well. I still can't pick up heavy stuff or bend around too much. But give me another week or two, I'll be able to pick that transmission up again. I'll get there. So I'm at the point now where I can kind of start doing stuff like this again. And where we last left off, I was putting lines on the turbo. And I actually want to kind of take a second to apologize, because a lot of times with stuff like this, I get into this work zone where I just kind of put the camera up and get locked in, start doing work, and I don't really explain it. So I want to start to do more commentary and more voiceover, so it's a little more informative, and I actually want to go over some stuff with the lines right now. The motor is in pretty good shape. You can see just the size difference between these two motors is absolutely insane. But transmission is together. I actually have to wait 1 week just for the transmission bolts because they are a little bit longer, so I had to order those. Clutch is on though, everything else is pretty good. And then these lines. So the basic concept with the turbo lines is you have a feed line right here. This is pressurized. Oil comes up in the top of the turbo, drains out the bottom and down into the oil pan. So I actually kind of have an interesting mix of lines here. This line is actually off of my RV6 turbo, which is nice because it's a stainless steel braided line and it actually fit perfectly. Supposedly the stock SI feed line does not work, but apparently the RV6 one seems to work just fine. And then I also managed to use my SI drain tube. Had to do a little bit of bending, bolted it up, bended it slightly to the right, and then I cut this, and it seems to work perfectly fine. And then the last part is you have two coolant lines right here. Flash forward here, I changed my mind on which coolant lines I want to use, and also the way I explained it before sounded kind of boring, so I'm going to be really quick this time. OEM Type R versus Accord. The OEM Type R lines will directly bolt onto the Type R turbo, but the issue is you have a larger diameter here, and the coolant line needs to go to here. This is the diameter it should be, so in order to use this line, you'd have to use an adapter to reduce it down to that size. Now originally I was going to use this line because I figured larger diameter, more flow, but the distance is so short, it literally just needs to go to here that I'd rather use this. But the issue with the Accord line is that it doesn't directly bolt on. So in order to get these holes to line up, you need to reduce these holes and ream them in just a little bit to about there, and then at that point the coolant line will directly match up. A lot of this build has been constantly slowed down by back order on parts. One of the pieces that I'm missing is this turbo support bracket. This is one for the L15, but I need one for the K series. It goes here to here, and it's on back order with no ETA. So rather than waiting who knows how many months, I'm just going to make my own. So spoiler, my first trial didn't work, but I'll show the process anyway. Cut out this piece of scrap metal, measured it, trying to just come up with a rough idea. Used some heat, bent it, and it was too short. Didn't work. So I found this other piece of scrap metal, which actually had a pretty close design already and ended up working perfectly. It has been absolutely ages since I uploaded, simply because life is crazy and it's been super chaotic, but I am back in a routine. I am feeling good. I kind of getting used to this whole YouTube thing, getting it down. I feel like I'm getting better at it. And the engine is at a point where it's pretty much fully assembled, at least in terms of all the bolt-ons. That intake isn't on, by the way. It just looks cool. It's not going on yet. But I just have vacuum and coolant lines to do. Put the wires on, change the shifter cables, and change the AC lines, which I don't know how the AC lines are going to work out. We'll find out. But once those loose ends are tied up, at that point the motor should be good to drop in, which is exciting. We're getting closer and closer to getting it started up. I feel like this is a good point to stop because the general assembly is together now, and I also haven't uploaded in so long. That being said, going forwards, I want to try to maybe upload more frequently, do a little bit less in each video, but at least have more consistent content coming so you guys aren't left in the dark too long. So I still have a lot to do with my car. I have a lot to do with Adam's car because he has a track day coming up and I have to get his car ready. There's a ton of parts off of the FK7 that are for sale, so check out my Instagram because I posted a lot more updates on there, and I'm also selling parts on there. Parts for my car will be for sale eventually, but I'm still waiting to have this ready to go before I list any of that. I have some work with a few of my other customers. I have one summer class I'm taking, so I'm still generally really busy, but I have a lot more time this summer than I did in the past couple months. And also, like I said, I'm getting more used to YouTube and I'm being able to manage it a little bit better. So more content coming more frequently. That's the goal. If you guys enjoy this and you want to see more and follow the progress on the build, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out the other videos. Other than that, that is all for this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.